We're back with The Haunting of Hill House, made in 1959, I believe, right? The Haunting. If I know how to spell haunting correctly. It came out in 1959. A Gothic horror novel by American author Shirley Jackson. You might know it from The Haunting on Hill House, popular show on Netflix. Came out in 2019, and you might have seen memes, which we thought of. I was joking around before we started. I said, The Haunting of Millhouse. And then she was like, why is it not a thing? Apparently, it's a huge, funny meme online. So what'd you think? Oh, spoiler alerts for everybody here. This is a book club vibes. We assume you read it already or you want to read it. Sorry, I have to get that out the way. I know they know already, but I feel bad because the intro of this book, do not read the intro. The whole intro is spoilers, man. These classic horror books we keep seeing.
If you're
people
joining
just
us,
spoil everything. It's a very big pet peeve.
I don't understand what's happening with the intros of the books.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that intros, because as a youth, I never gave a shit about the intros. I ever read them.
You just skip them.
But as an adult...
Oh, Jesus. If you guys have watched any of these, our dog literally does the creepiest shit when we record these creepy book podcasts.
What just happened?
He's dreaming and he cried in his dream, so all we hear is a distant...
It sounded like someone kicked him or something.
In his dream, maybe. Or maybe not his dream, and we're all spookies. Go on. Yes, the intro ruins the whole thing.
It literally tells you, from beginning to end, the
tells
basic
you the
plot
ending of the
and
book.
the ending.
It's crazy. Stephen King does this to his own books in the intro. I'm like, they just assume if you're reading this, you must have already liked it. I'm like, this is crazy. So just a good rule of thumb, PSA to everybody. If it's a somewhat older book, even probably only a decade old, who knows? These are, this is 59, and the others, the King is in the 70s, so I get the point. But still, it's not like everybody knows these plots. But anyways, you were saying, how'd you think about it?
I love this book. It was great. I really think it's a great, fun, short read for someone that's looking for something kind of spooky.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they're not looking to commit to a super long book. They just want something fun to read for October. They're not super big readers. Or if you just are looking for just something like a bite.
Yeah. So it has weirdly low Goodreads. It's 3.85 out of 5. I know, I was surprised by that, but 92% on the Google Book. I saw that before we started reading it, and I didn't want to tell you. Is The Haunting of Hill House book appropriate for 12-year-olds?
There is no sex.
I know.
And everyone is very proper.
I know. I'm like, I could see it actually being okay.
I
was just gonna look at page
12. I would maybe say a middle school.
Yeah.
I could see this being a middle school appropriate book.
It says 256 pages long, and on here, it's 155 on the Kindle.
It is written also in. It is still. It's better than Frankenstein level, but it's not like reading a Stephen King book.
Yeah, and it's 7.5 hours long on Audible. So like you said, it's a breezy, it's a cool spooky summer or
fun.
Spooky
especially
October
if you're
read.
in high school and you're looking for
you
know how, I don't know, did you have to do that, the reading? They would make you read X amount of books, and then they'd give you 3 books of your choice, but you had to do.
You get a free Pizza Hut pizza. That's how old we are. You ever had that?
You got pizza?
There's some whole pizza club thing. There's a whole book club something you could take to the Pizza Hut.
No, we just got a grade.
That's how us poor folk get free pizza. It's true. She's laughing because it's true. They also give you free cookies at Publix. I'm giving you game right now.
Well,
that's how you eat for free.
Yeah, the way to get the free cookies, you have to be a child.
Shh. You could,
I got away with it for a while.
Yeah.
I looked really young.
Anyways, Hill House, super spooky. It opens with, by the way, this great thing we saw. Some merch puts it. The very first opening quote of this book is a banger. Don't worry, we're not gonna go super quote heavy.
No, we're not. But this is a banger. And actually, shout out, call back to our Salem's Lot. This quote, Stephen King actually puts this entire little. I think that's what that note is trying to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you have your notes here that she writes while she's with the baby, so she's keeping the baby to sleep, and she's reading these things.
Not a shout out to
so
Kindle.
She writes
your keyboard sucks ass.
Yeah,
and I'm typing shit with one hand, and the keyboard lags. You hit a letter and it's E, X.
My joke is that she's trying to keep up the Gaelic language that my people have lost.
So that's supposed to say exact quote in Salem's Lot.
Yeah. Because obviously the house, the Marston house, is inspired by that. Sorry, I can't tell what's an airplane, a dog crying, or a baby crying. I think she's okay. She rolled a little bit, but she's back.
Okay.
Yeah, the Marston house, the house on the hill in the book. That's not a spoiler for Stephen King's book. There, what the hell is it called? We literally just read it. Salem's Lot. Jesus. Is inspired by this, and like I said, it has this exact quote. Let me read it. No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality. Even larks and katydids are supposed by some to dream. Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within. I'll just leave it there because in the end, well, all right. You need this last quote. The last quote is how it ends. You need
the whole thing. It had stood for 80 years and might stand for 80 more. Within, walls continued upright, bricks met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there walked alone.
Mm-hmm.
It is important because this paints a seriously clear picture of Hill House, and I think it's important because it sets the tone of where everything is going to be taking place.
Yeah.
This isn't some like shack, because the Marston house is depicted as
dilapidated.
It could have been like this, but it's dilapidated, it's falling apart, it's dusty, it's like not been opened or lived in for probably 80 years.
Yeah.
Whereas Hill House is immaculate, like kept up. Everything is, it's one of those OCD, everything has a place and there's a place for everything.
Which are Dudleys.
I feel bad. I actually really like that saying. Don't take it personal. But it is a very like and one of the biggest themes in the book is that the doors are never open. So they're either closed by someone or they mysteriously close by themselves.
When Mrs. Dudley has that little spasm, she's like, the doors are meant to be closed.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, from everything. Like two of the characters that we end up following, which are Eleanor, basically our main character.
Yeah.
And Theo, who's a
Theodora.
Second main character.
Yeah.
Theodora. They all have nicknames. So Eleanor will be Nell or Nellie, and Theodora will be Theo. So when Theodora arrives, she finds Eleanor, who's the first to arrive, and they prop a door open to go explore outside.
Yeah.
And Miss Dudley, who is actually she's not the caretaker of the land. She's literally the house caretaker, because she's married to the grounds caretaker.
Yeah.
And they're both kind of portrayed as being grumpy.
Yeah, very grumpy, very not wanting to. How do you think?
But they're also the only people that are, for whatever reason, able to take care of this house.
Now, what's the whole situation? Who owns it? Luke is going to inherit it.
Luke is going to inherit it, but it's owned by his, I think, aunt.
Yeah, that's right. At the end, they mentioned that he went back to his aunt. But it just reminded me of The Shining with the vagueness and the weird trust and who owns the Overlook Hotel.
It is a little bit like that. They do even joke that the Dudleys could even be related to whoever originally owned it. Yeah. And they're just waiting for someone to not own it anymore, for it to fall back in their laps.
If the aunt and Luke die, it'll be the Dudleys.
Yeah, that's
because
the joke.
What makes them stay there? They
not
don't
just
seem
stay
as
there.
hypnotic.
They take care of it. It's immaculately cared for. They talk about how the groundskeeper is, I think, even described as dirty. I would have to go back to the description, but he's he's an unkept, grumpy, disheveled type of character, and for some reason the grounds though are beautiful. They have this rich garden that's had a bountiful year. Everything is just pretty, and then Miss Dudley is also equally dirty looking, and there is a focus. So
or looks so unwelcoming that.
But there is a focus on dirt, because we have I'm jumping around a little bit. This is a side tangent.
Yeah.
But we have these two characters described as kind of being dirty, and then Eleanor constantly realizing that there's like dirt in her nails, her feet
when
are dirty.
When she has these weird blackout things, yeah.
Well, no, like even before, like Theo's gonna paint her nails, and she realizes that her hands are dirty or there's dirt under her nails.
What I mean by blackout is like, how did she not notice that? Like, I feel like this book did a really good, but it's such a strange job, and obviously King would run with this, like this weird, I say zoning out in the sense of like the play with her being possessed or being like losing focus. Like, how did you not notice your nails were so dirty? Because in that scene you're talking about, she freaks out. She really felt self-conscious.
The first time that she noticed her nails being dirty, I believe she's like I think it's like the first morning, and Theodora's like, oh, you should take a bath, or I'll leave the bath water so you can take a bath. And she's like, why would she think I'm dirty? And then she like looks at her nails or something and is like, oh my god. I guess
not, but does I mean like not noticing? It's just strange. Like, what did she do to get like that and all that kind of stuff? And the gatekeepers, my point that I don't want to forget is that they don't seem possessed in the Eleanor sense, but they seem like controlled. I thought for sure the Mrs. Dudley was like dead, like Miss Dudley was gonna be a ghost or something.
I know, it was kind of funny. I started the entire book, and I was wondering what was going on, because Eleanor basically shows up. Mr. Dudley doesn't even want to open the gate for her. Yeah. So she basically bullies him into letting her in. And then Mrs. Dudley's there, and she's like, "You're Mrs. Dudley, right?" And she never like confirms that she's Mrs. Dudley.
Which I thought was like, cool. We didn't really talk about this one much. Yeah. Who else do you think would be around here? Which is tons of play with that stuff. Like, they all act like the house is empty, but the house is full of ghosts. The house is full of. I mean, how many ghosts do you think we have total? We got Papa and kids.
Sorry,
no, right?
This.
Yeah.
No, I actually don't know how many ghosts are in this house. I don't even know. So one of the biggest questions that I would like to ask you is, do you in fact think that the house is haunted, or was it just Eleanor being a psychic, or
Mia?
My version? Do you think that the house, knowing that Eleanor has... Because Eleanor is described as having a poltergeist experience when she was a kid.
The rocks falling on the roof.
Where rocks were falling, not just on the roof. I think it was like everywhere, even in the house or something, right?
No, because they had to play it. It was on the roof. It was the rocks falling on the roof, because she even says that the mom blamed it on the neighbors. This is based on a real thing, by the way. This really... on house, I've heard of this before. You know, who knows if it's true or not, but that's funny. Stephen King uses that too. I've heard of this. Yeah, is this the Millville poltergeist of 1885? Let me see, 1885 Millville poltergeist. Yeah, rocks falling. There you go. A correspondent with the Chronicle writing from Millville under the date of August 7th relates as following: this town, which is nearly the center of Shasta County, which is California, I think, has been thrown into a state of excitement by the report of wonderful doings
which have taken
place in a 9-mile ranch east of town belonging to blah blah blah. I don't see the rest of it. Basically, you have a lot of this shit happening in the 1800s. You got all kinds of what they were playing with too, the whole idea of the planchette, like that's what is so funny about the traditional values and all that. I'm like, they were doing fucking seances every other weekend throughout. Like, when were seances the most popular? When were seances? Yeah, I was gonna say it's even in the 1900s. Yeah, I just forget about that. Lincoln's wife used to do big seances in the White House. So this is like a common theme, and that's what they're playing with our doctor here in the book. and his wife that are weird like proto ghost hunters shows. You know, they're going around.
I found, by the way.
Yeah.
Silently, the woman stood aside. So it's page probably 20 or 21. Her apron was clean, her hair was neat, and yet she gave an indefinable air of dirtiness, quite in keeping with her husband, and the suspicious sullenness of her face was a match for the malicious petulance of his.
Yeah.
So those are the Dudleys described.
Yeah. So, but that's why there gotta be some sort of what was your theory? Well, you didn't finish. What was your third theory? That the house?
The house probably is haunted because it goes through too many people, and too many people are unable to live there. So the house.
They all saw the blood.
Yeah, well, not just that. Like, literally, even if you were to not take just this incident, like, the reason Dr. Montague, that's his name, right?
Yeah.
That's what you say it? Mm-hmm. The reason he decides to do this investigation, this ghost investigation, where's Zach Baggins?
Yeah. Whoa.
The reason he picks Hill House is because he's able to find all these records of people not being able to stay there.
Yeah.
The house has been uninhabitable for more than just a couple days at a time. Everyone ends up leaving.
Yeah.
So I doubt that the house is only attracting...
Yeah, all like high level...
Yeah, like there's no way...
You know, mentally ill and psychically. Like the overlap there.
However, what Mr. Montague does do is look for people that are psychic. So Theodora has a psychicness to her in that she was able to pick, I think it was like 15 out of 20. Like they did that, what is that test where...
I know the cards.
It's like the cards, you have to, they pick out symbols basically. And she was able to guess the symbols.
The Zener cards.
Yeah, she guessed like 15 out of 20.
Yeah.
Which is like crazy.
With the weird shapes. Yeah. It should be, you know, you got 5 different shapes, so you should only have 20%.
Yeah, Freddie and I played this.
Chance. Yeah, he did pretty good.
I'm psychic. No,
yeah,
I'm not.
I did not do so good.
I am not.
And I am. It was a fluke. I was being suppressed by other psychic powers.
So then...
Your theory on that.
My theory is that because he found Eleanor and Theo, who have psychicness to them, Eleanor with the whole possible probable
something's attacking her. Yeah, she's.
And then the issue is that Eleanor's currently struggling with the recent death of her mother, and we find out that she was her mother's caretaker, and her mother used to call out in the middle of the night to bring her medication.
Yeah.
And there was one night where, all right, this is a side rant on a side rant. Do you think that she did kill her mother?
I know. The whole scene, I remember it kind of vividly, where she even wonders herself, did she hear her calling out for the meds and she just went to sleep? Which wouldn't it be killing her? You know, but also could she have done something to kill her or purposely do that?
I don't think but I do wonder if she purposely went back to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, she paints it like, I mean...
Because her mother was crazy overbearing, like, this is just her slave. Her daughter's just supposed to give up her life to take care of her.
You're in Eleanor's perspective a lot. So, it's kind of... It does remind me... What was the book that we read where the character always lies to himself and you can't trust them?
I mean, fucking The Shining with the Jack Torrance.
Yeah. It's got very Jack Torrance vibes where, like, I don't know that I trust you, Eleanor. When you're like, I mean... She does a great job. If I did wake up and hear her, I must have fallen back to sleep. Because, you know, that can happen. Like, I mean, it's the middle of the night. I was tired. It was an accident.
To quote another King thing, she really loses her marbles. But you get, like, He's
obsessed with, like... He'll tell me, like, oh, he's losing his marbles. I'm like, this is also just a saying.
Oh, I know. I keep doing that. I didn't mean
he'll
to
be
use
like,
that.
it's just like Stephen King. I'm like, it's also just the
to drive you nuts. Man, what are like popular sayings that I should attribute to Lovecraft just to drive you even more nuts? It's like Lovecraft always says, you know, you got to look both ways.
Yeah.
No, that's just a thing. No, what I meant is, like, she is so mentally unstable. Like, she starts off... She literally has just not been outside.
And, yeah.
She's just been
and I guess
a servant of her dying mother for years.
That's what I wanted to... Because you asked me when we first started reading, because as Eleanor's driving from the city to the house, she's got this, like...
Yeah,
she's
these
like
fantasies. Yeah.
Like, oh, look at that. If I lived in that house, I could just picture myself. And she would have this whole little imaginary story play out in her head.
The lions and all that.
Where
how she would clean the lions. She gets into the crazy...
Because this lady has 2 stone lions, and she would, like, pet them and clean them once a month and whatever. So she has all these... And actually, funny enough, she strings little pieces of these fantasies or little stories that she collects to create a fake persona.
Yeah, the apartment she tells Theo about.
Well, Theodore. They all kind of are liars, like, but
I know.
But she's Theo, I think the difference is that Theo and Luke know that they're joking.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the weird little banter.
Yeah, they do a weird little banter like the first night.
And that's what you meant by stylistic wise. It is written 50s-ish vibe, like
Luke's
it's just
like,
weird.
oh, I'm
it's hard
a
to describe.
bullfighter, and Theo's like, I'm a runaway princess.
It reminds me of Hemingway, which I know is, I guess, a little bit later. No, probably around the same time. It reminded me of The Sun Also Rises for some reason. When was that written? I don't even know when this is written. It's written 26. Jesus Christ, I was off. Yeah, for some reason, like that, the kind of banter that they have, the weird back and forth, like how they talk, reminded me of that.
These characters, by the way, they're portrayed as being like young. I would have definitely, with this type of banter, thought them to be in their like 20. They're like 30 something. She's 34. She's 32. She's like, I don't know why I tacked on like.
They're a weird aristocratic class.
But they're portrayed as like kids.
But they're like childlike. They're like mentally not that.
All of
experienced,
them. Like, we pick on Eleanor, but Theo's like...
But even the doctor.
Let's run down the halls, and like they're all kind of goofy.
Yeah. They really do strike me as someone who's never fucking had a job. Don't come into this book
thinking that you're going to like have some serious people.
But it's a peek at like the weird income, I think, differences.
Yeah. Like these people have never had... Well, I don't know about Eleanor.
No, Mark Twain, I always tell you this. I don't know why
her and her sister like share a car, so they're not rich. But
they come from like not having to work. But Eleanor has a
naivety. That's what I was trying to tell you, that like...
That's true.
Yes, she's not... She's kind of like... I don't know that she's necessarily crazy. I would say she's... Now knowing that how her mom died, because you don't find out until the end, I would say that for sure she was probably walking a thin line. Like, I think the recent death of her mother and the way her mother used to treat her probably took a toll on her mental health. But overall, I think she's somewhat sane and honestly just kind of naive. Like, she's just she's romantic.
She's a childlike mind.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole fantasizing out of the house is like, you don't do that
like,
shit unless you're like in middle school or like elementary school. Like,
she didn't leave.
I want to live in the big house, and I'd have a helicopter on the roof, and then I would do. It's like, what?
She's just she fantasizes and romanticizes, and she's naive, and I think that makes her look particularly
vulnerable to the house.
Yeah,
or like, to the kids.
I think the house for sure knows this is her being on the brink of a big loss because it was her mom. The house knowing that she's looking for a place. Like, I actually saw someone say that, I think on Reddit, where like the house knew that she's looking for a home. Like, she's looking for a place that she belongs. Because right now she's living at her sister's and sleeping in a pull-out cot in the baby's room. And her sister doesn't like her. They share the car, but her sister treats her.
They do such a great job. I was saying those are one of the only other things we talked about.
Even one of the other characters we meet, which I don't like, Montague's wife.
Yeah, Montague's wife is insufferable. But her sister and the way they write it, you just get like that.
Even Montague's wife is like, I don't care for her sister.
Oh yeah.
I was like, yeah, nobody does.
I do like Montague's wife at the end. I literally just finished it, a couple minutes, maybe an hour before we started this, but she's like, all right, wrap it up. Let this lady go home, and let's continue on our ghost fucking hunt.
Yeah, because.
But I just want to say that the writing for Eleanor's sister was so makes you
so good.
Mentally claustrophobic, panicky, like you're such a possessive weirdo.
Yeah, and it makes you see why
like, I need the car. What if she's like, it's my car too. We both share the car. Mother would want me to have. She's like, no. You can't for X. You're not gonna have it.
Eleanor's sister is also so controlled by her husband. Yeah. It's so annoying because
they're going off.
First, she doesn't seem to care about the car, and then the husband's like, "I don't think your sister should have the car." And then her sister basically turns to Eleanor and is like,
"Right,
yeah, I don't think you should have the car." I'm like, "What the fuck? Are you a parrot?" Sorry, I really got to get better about the cursing. Not just for the podcast,
it's for the
but
baby.
Our baby's starting to learn to copy words.
Mm-hmm.
And
she already says duck. It's one letter away.
I know. No, and like today she was... All right, I won't get into it. But today she was copying a word that they were saying. And I'm like, it's only a matter of time before I slip up and...
Don't do it.
I have a 1-year-old walking around going...
Yeah.
Quack, 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 quack.
Transition. Who wrote in blood?
Yeah, so...
Because it's to your ghost, how many ghosts and all that.
They leave it open where it could have been the house or it could have been... But then nothing ends up being...
But the house has to mean the dad. I mean, the dad made that creepy-ass book with a weird page that he drew personally, right? He, made that book is what they were saying?
Yeah. And there is... So that's... They weren't just saying that. They literally make a point. They make a point of saying... It's not just that he wrote it. He literally took pages and work from other books and a scrapbook, put it together, and then calligraphied in the words.
Yeah, but didn't he draw? Was it greed? It wasn't greed. It was gluttony.
The sins,
gluttony?
All of the sins.
He drew them
by
all,
hand.
Right? Yeah, and they said even the sex thing. They were like, what is he drawing here?
Yeah.
It was the way they did a really good job of describing how creepy the you got your 7 deadly sins. The gluttony one, I remember they made a joke about you never want to eat again after looking at what he drew. And then the sex one was like, what does he think?
Literally, the girls are so upset by the first image that Eleanor won't look at any of them. And Theo ends up sitting down after a couple of the sins and telling them that unless it's something that they can read or they think she can...
Yeah, I forgot that word. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I highlighted it, but the Kindle website's being trash. I don't understand why. I can't. My annotations won't.
Oh no!
Sorry, I don't mean to.
No. I mean, it's true. I was trying to say in his blood.
No, it wasn't written in blood.
No, some part of that was. I thought no.
At the end, there's a blood pact.
Yeah, to lock trap his daughter.
It's either that he signed his name or, but it's not the whole thing written in blood.
Yeah. I'm just remembering that last.
But part. It wasn't. It was put blood pact or something.
I got right here.
Or just type in Crane because I know
Daughter's sacred pacts are signed in blood. Yeah. Theo, no, in any case, I insist for the sake of your 2 consciences in reading what Hugh Crane has to say in closing his book. Daughter's sacred pacts are signed in blood, and I have here taken from my own wrist the vital fluid with which I bind you. Live virtuously, be meek, have faith in thy Redeemer, and in me thy Father, and I swear to thee that we will be joined together hereafter in unending bliss. That has to mean the house. That's what I mean by I think that he has trapped the daughters.
But the semi doesn't make sense because one of the daughters ends up even losing custody of the house. She's the one that loses the house.
Yeah, in older age.
She ends up coming...
So maybe got the one?
If we look for the history... there's a small history breakdown of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the sisters ends up, basically losing custody of the house because one of them dies. So that might be the one that's trapped because there are 2. And the book is left to specifically one of them. The book is not left to both of them.
So maybe the one Sarah. Is trapped. Yeah.
If you scroll, I believe it's left to Sarah Crane. I might be wrong. But maybe one is trapped and the other one isn't. But I know that they both end up fighting over the house.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because they got that whole thing with the fighting over the leftovers,
they
basically.
They end up harassing, one of them ends up harassing the person that ends up owning the house.
So maybe he's trapped and he's hoping to get hurt because they got that whole marble statue and it even plays with the whole, there's light, the way the light plays with it. There was one scene towards the end where the light's reflecting off his eyes and I'm like, all right, that might be a hint that he is, in the house. Some conscious force is trying to bind them. I mean, I think, maybe overthinking it. This guy's fucking writing pacts in his own blood and doing all kinds of creepy stuff. And he's the, patriarch of this house. He built the house, right? He was all excited about the house and he wanted it to be a perfect little, sanctuary. And the wife dies right away. Because she flipped, we don't know, it's just an accident, right? with her cart, her wagon.
That's not who dies in the car.
The wife? No, the wife dies.
I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the wife dies right in the beginning. Yeah, Hugh Crane's young wife died minutes before she first was to set eyes on the house when the carriage bringing her overturned.
Okay.
Overturned in the driveway, and the lady was brought lifeless, I believe, was the phrase they used.
So is it the wife that's stuck there?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He was a sad and bitter man. Hugh Crane left with 2 small daughters to bring up. He did not leave Hill House, which is pretty great. He did not leave Hill House. Like, maybe that's a clue there. Like, he did not leave it.
He does end up leaving, though. He doesn't die there. He ends up going abroad.
Okay. And then he did marry again. Yeah, that's right. I forgot this part. Yeah.
And he leaves them. They, like, end up growing up.
He married twice. Wow. And they all died, too, right? Yeah, the second died of a fall. And her death seems to be tragically unexplained. His predecessor, the third wife, died of what they call consumption. Yes, somewhere in Europe. There is somewhere in the library a collection of postcards sent to the 2 little girls left behind in Hill House from their father and their stepmother traveling from one health resort to another. The little girls were left here with the governess until their stepmother's death. After that, Hugh Crane declared his intention of closing Hill House and remaining abroad, and his daughters were sent to live with a cousin of their mother's.
Yeah.
And they still remain there when they grow up.
And so, basically, the 2 sisters spent the rest of their lives quarreling over Hill House.
Yeah.
After his high hopes of a dynasty centered here, Hugh Crane died somewhere in Europe. Shortly after, his wife and Hill House was left jointly to the 2 sisters, who must have been quite young ladies by then. The older sister had, at any rate, made her debut into society. It is said the older sister was crossed in love, although that is said of almost any lady who prefers, for whatever reason, to live alone. At any rate, it was the older sister who came back here to live. She seems to have resembled her father strongly. She lived here alone for a number of years, almost in seclusion, although the village of Hillsdale knew her.
The whole resembling her father strongly might be true.
And she's the one that eventually took a girl from the village to live with her as a companion.
Yeah.
And that's the girl that ends up hanging herself in the tower.
Yeah.
Because what happens is when that sister dies, the older sister, she leaves Hill House to the companion. But the younger sister ends up suing to try to get the house back. And I believe she loses the suit and doesn't end up regaining the house. The companion ends up keeping it, but she's harassed so much and everyone in the town is poisoned against her. So it's this idea of like everyone turned against her and she's all alone, so she ends up hanging herself. But that's how the house ended up falling out of the Crane possession, basically.
Yeah.
And into the hands of the Sanders, who are the family of Luke, who inherited the house.
Yeah.
That's the history of Hill House, which is why I'm like, I don't know that it necessarily has any of the family stuck there.
No, but ghost lore, real world ghost lore, you don't have to, if it was emotionally significant to you, you might pop up there.
I don't know that it's not just the house. And I don't know, I guess.
But they mentioned like even the architecture is so off, intentionally off, that there's like an emergent. He literally says, the doctor's pretty clear that he thinks the house itself is evil.
I was going to say, I honestly feel like this leans more into the realm of like the Marston house, and it may be inspiring Stephen King.
Yeah, voids in the force.
Yeah, just these like dark
ruptures,
these places, these nexuses of evil, where this house, for whatever reason, I believe they even describe as like some houses are just evil, and this was probably one of them.
Yeah. And she feels that as soon as she gets there, Eleanor. They do a great job of like following her goddamn intuition, but how the evil works is that she finally gets free. So of course she's like the kid that, doesn't ever get out to a party, so they stay out too long or they do something too crazy. And so like she doesn't want to leave. She's like, no, I'm always being pushed around. I'm not going to be pushed around by this. And it's like, no, that's the one thing you should have been afraid of and left. And
well, here, actually, it's on the next. Go to page 40. We're back one page to 47. So it says here, The companion swore in court, and here I think is the first hint of Hill House in its true personality, that the young sister came into the house at night and stole things.
Yeah.
In addition, the famous set of gold-rimmed dishes, which would actually have been very difficult to steal when you think about it. There's no record whatever of any but the most formal notice of the older sister's death, and certainly the villagers would have been the first to wonder if there had been any oddness about the death. The companion won her case at last, and could, in my opinion, have won a case for slander besides, and the house became legally hers. Although the younger sister never gave up trying to get it.
Yeah. To your point, something about the way it's written made me feel like it's trying to replace the wife. Like it wants,
the wife didn't even make it to the.
But she died. I know she died in the thing, right as soon as she saw it. But so to your point, like it just likes killing people because there's nothing really to make of the companion that hung herself. So like I said, maybe it's just a.
It's just like sucking
it's just
people
a
in.
dark
And like,
side rupture in the force.
Like it's later kind of pointed out that like the weird stuff that was supposedly stolen, they don't have any way of actually proving what was stolen.
Yeah. Like
old Miss Crane was in constant disagreement with her sister over the house, the young sister insisting she had given up her claim on the house in exchange for a number of family heirlooms, some of considerable value, which her sister then refused to give her. There were some jewels, several pieces of antique furniture, and a set of gold-rimmed dishes, which seemed to irritate the younger sister more than anything else. Mrs. Sanderson let me rummage through a box of family papers, and so I've seen some of the letters Miss Crane received from her sister, and in all of them those dishes stand out as the recurrent sore subject.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, but it has to be an intelligence, though, is my thing. Like, it's not just, like, the wind, force of nature, because it's writing things, it's doing intelligent things. Like they say, hauntings are usually split into, like, residual hauntings, where somebody's just coming down the stairs or washing dishes, so that's what you hear. But it's intelligently reacting to them, no? Especially with that planchette scene, with the whole, basically, a seance.
It definitely... It knows, and that's what Eleanor, as the house seeps. I don't doubt that the house did to Eleanor on a higher level what it does to other people. But the thing is that Eleanor, being a naive romantic and on the verge of like a mental breakdown, or as the Gen Zs call it, a mentee bee.
Oh yeah, she's having a mentee bee.
I think the house was just able to either we get to experience the feeling of the house getting into your mind.
I just picture your boy Mark Wahlberg. You gotta stay prayed up. Stay prayed up. Eleanor's not prayed up.
Basically.
And so, like you said, that's what I meant by the whole rocks falling on a roof thing. Like, somehow, and King, like you said, plays with this a lot, is just more susceptible. Some people are born with the shine, like just psychic powers. Some people seem to be, for some reason, like a bad immune system. They have a bad immune system to the supernatural, and they get attacked by evil.
We also have this point. I forgot. It's on that page 48 where I was on, but basically after the caregiver kills herself, the younger sister basically had, I don't know if it's after she killed herself or before, but she basically got hauled off to the police station for like harassing the people that live here all the time. And they say, and that seems to be the end of the younger sister's part in the story. From the day that the first Sanderson sent her packing to the brief notice of her death a few years later, she seems to have spent her time brooding silently over her wrongs, but far away from the Sandersons. Oddly enough, in all her ranting, she insisted always on one point. She would not come into this house at night to steal or for any other reason. So there's this concept of we don't go into this house at night, and even the sisters that fought over this house. There's this beloved house.
Yeah, they want the house, but they're scared of it.
Yeah.
And Dudley, Mrs. Dudley, who works there, is scared of it. You could assume
Dudley
Mr. Dudley.
No, people don't come to this house at night.
Yeah, which was like writing like a bit on the nose.
Which is why I'm like, the house is haunted. You can't say it's not. Whether it's...
But it's from because, like a demon.
The doctor
Maybe it's not just any of these humans.
It's
just a big demon.
Yeah, because the doctor suspects, he's like, oh, it's because it's over something water, like
underground
water.
Which is also a real world, like, what does he call it? Yeah, the waters. This is all 1800s-ish, early 1900s, like, theories. You got the ether, you got, like, vague. You got ectoplasms that ghost leaves behind. And so all these very vague, it sounds like it's science terms because they're trying to use, scientific terminology, Victorian era classification of everything. But it's just vague. But it was cool. It's definitely set in that kind of vibe. He keeps trying to dismiss it, but something I would like to see come back more. Like we were joking about Zach Baggins and the Ghost Adventures crew. Like you got the people
shout out to I enjoy Ghost Adventures.
Yeah, I really do. All
people
people act like you're supposed to not like it. I'm like, it's fucking fun, and it's like my thing with flat Earth and the moon landings. It's like you deserve it. Go ahead and disprove it by having a better spacefaring mission. So let's go disprove all these ghost people by engaging with this phenomenon more. So everybody I know has claimed to see a ghost or has some sort of ghost story. Literally every single person.
I have a highly active imagination also.
I'm saying my parents, your parents, extended family, every single person has something. My dad doesn't believe in shit, and he still has, when his dad died, he felt somebody, he knew for sure somebody was in the room. And he looked around. He went around. He was going nuts. He was looking around the house, and and that was before he knew that he died.
I've had people come to me.
Yeah, I know we have different dream stuff and all that, but people might dismiss. Obviously, I think it's serious, but I'm saying even the most skeptical people I know have these weird things, and we don't apply science to it. So Dudley's cool, in that. That's just the waters part that you're mentioning.
My visits were peaceful, so shout out to my family.
Yeah, yeah.
For real.
No, mine were all peaceful too. There was no weird.
Yeah.
There was no weirdness or like bad stuff. But that's why I think this thing maybe we're hung up on. It's not any of these personalities. Like Eleanor might not be even actively haunting it in the future. It might not be the dad. It might not be the sisters.
I don't know that Eleanor wasn't actively haunting now. Like I almost also wonder if it's somewhat of a loop. Like.
Yeah.
Does this house create a loop? Like, is Eleanor haunting herself?
I know, the whole time collapsing coolness
because
that King plays with sometimes. Because
even towards the end, Eleanor starts doing shit that the ghost does, where she starts running around knocking on people's doors. I think she's possessed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. She does, and they all accuse her, which is cool for shit. Like, she probably drew the first. It was like a small amount of blood.
No, it was like a chalk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was Eleanor come home.
Yeah.
In chalk.
And she was like, "Why would I put my own thing?" And you want me to center of attention and all that kind of shit. But the doctor, somebody realizes that the writing in blood would be too much blood.
Yeah, they're like, well, you would have had to kill something to have this much blood. Because it wasn't just the writing in blood. Mm-hmm. It was also that all of Theodora's stuff was shredded and covered in blood. Yeah.
But she was very angry at
she was angry
Theodora at that part.
That's what I agree with your possession thing, by the way.
She's I think that's my strongest point is possession. I was just writing up a little thing before this summaries. She literally starts looking at her hands when when they paint her feet. She's like, I have like shoes on. I have red shoes on. She reminds me of somebody who's tripping too hard.
I actually disagree. I think that's her being naive and her just being
feeling like an individual for once.
Yeah, and like her being proud of herself and like, look what I'm doing. I'm doing this. I'm doing this all by myself. Like this is me doing this. I don't think that's her tripping too hard. I just think that's just sad.
But they play with it later. I know. I thought what you're saying at first, but what kind of tips me over is like you said later though, where she starts. When I know that she is eventually possessed, it makes me wonder if that's the start of it.
No, I think
to your point, she does do it in the drive a little bit too.
I think we have an issue when she says, "I surrender." Where she says, "All right, I kind of basically give up," and like the doctor.
She used the word surrender.
Yeah, look up the word surrender. You're gonna see it. She actually says, when right there at the top one too, when Eleanor finally agrees to surrender to Hill House to buy herself.
Oh, that's from the fucking foreshadowing, I think. I mean, from the intro, I think.
Oh, okay, sorry, my bad.
But so it's all happening here on page 99.
But yeah.
Look, there's.
I could stand any of it if I could only surrender, and that's where everyone's like, what?
Well, let me just read it from here. Look, there's only one of me, and it's all I've got. I hate seeing myself dissolve and slip and separate so that I'm living in one half, my mind, and I see the other half of me helpless and frantic and driven, and I can't stop it. But I know I'm not really going to be hurt, and yet time is so long, and even a second goes on and on and on, and I could stand any of it if I could only surrender. Surrender, said the doctor sharply, and Eleanor stared. Surrender? Luke repeated. I don't know, Eleanor said, perplexed. I was just talking along, she told herself. I was saying something. What was I just saying? So, let's read your... Yeah, gone to the house?
Yeah.
What are you trying to say? Yeah. Yeah, like you said, this moment is when, to quote King, it was profound, she loses her marble. I couldn't even finish it.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, this is great because she literally, that's what I mean by blacking out though. That's what I'm kind of putting them all together. And to be fair, like you said, she's having these fantasies and these disassociative, like, look at me. I'm doing it. I'm driving. I'm not like a little wimp. I'm not being bullied by my sister. I'm really striking out on my own. So I get you. Look, to be fair, it's probably both. It was what you're saying at first, but then for sure.
Definitely you start to see, like, I think you're right to say that something starts to get woven in where it's not just her.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's why I'm like, I don't want to, it's not that she's
good
just
writing.
cracked out. I think it's your way of trying to follow the thread and then seeing where it's unraveling, where, like, where did we start to lose Eleanor?
That's what I mean by
like,
good writing.
really
Like, you
lose
don't
her. Like,
know.
she was already kind of lost and naive and
that's why I say there's kind of psychic immunities that she is maybe she wasn't being disassociative like in the beginning. That's just, she was just that insecure and that, like, proud of herself for small goals. But it's people like that are vulnerable to these dark side, nexus rifts in the force. This demon thing captured her, made her surrender. Like, that's the words that she's using, to the point that it's freaking out the entire Ghost Adventure crew here.
Page 49, by the way, is your Eleanor found herself unexpectedly admiring her own feet. I have red shoes, she thought. That goes with being Eleanor. I dislike lobster and sleep on my left side and crack my knuckles when I'm nervous and save buttons. I'm holding a brandy glass, which is mine because I'm here and I'm using it and I have a place in this room. I have red shoes and tomorrow I'll wake up and I will still be here.
Yeah. I didn't see exactly where that was, but I remember the whole thing, even the lobster thing. That's why I'm like...
Oh, I think the next page from where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you think that's a person that's themselves? I mean, yeah.
I mean...
Look, I can see both. Like you said, I think that's her playing with it on purpose. She wants it to be confusing that you don't know when exactly.
I mean, I guess to your point, like, she's also... She lies to herself because she says after that, it's a whole not highlighted part. I have red shoes, she said very softly, and Theodora turned and smiled up at her. I had intended, and the doctor looked around at them with bright, anxious optimism. I had intended to ask if you all played bridge. Of course, Eleanor said. I play bridge, she thought. I used to have a cat named Dancer. I can swim. Like, we don't know if any of that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's just so odd. I guess it's like, it's cool, and obviously King, is super inspired by this, openly wants to homage these things. The idea of, like, again, the immunity, their immune system, you get in the wrong thing, you get exposed to this virus, and your ass is, dead. Because the companion, whatever issue they were having, like, something just cracks and then this house jumps on you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like, this house knew she had cracks, and in a funny way it preyed on, like, the companion lady didn't kill herself until the town had been turned against her.
Yeah.
And so, like, the house just preys on your insecurity and your, like, why her mom drove into a tree is totally...
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to yell at the
yeah,
cat.
from the very beginning, though, which is weird because you're getting into
if he wakes up the baby.
Theories of beauty. Our cat's losing it now. Theories on beauty, like the house is made purposely, we haven't talked about this yet, that it's like inches off, millimeters off, to make you uncomfortable. Like, there's a whole thing in the beginning. I was like, this is like architect porn over here, like to people in school or something for architecture. Like, I was like, man, she's really going heavy on, like, the
girls have 2 rooms, adjacent rooms, with, like, I think it's called, like, a Jack and Jill bathroom where it connects the 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, they have connected bathrooms.
So they're, like, on the second floor facing out to the front. So they should be able to see this tower that's attached to the house.
Yeah, that's when they start.
But they can't. And so you find out that it's because nothing in the house has, like, a right angle, basically. Like everything's off. It's by just a few degrees. It's page 64.
Yeah, that's true. Degrees will do it. Okay, 64.
That old Hugh Crane expected that someday Hill House might become a showplace like the Winchester House in California or the many Octagon houses. He designed Hill House himself, remember, and I have told you before, he was a strange man. Every angle, and the doctor gestured toward the doorway, every angle is slightly wrong.
And that's why the doors close by themselves. Because they're, well, that's the normal reason.
That's the science.
Yeah, that's the secular reason. The non-spooky reason for why they all close. They do, what's our name of our show, by the way? We haven't mentioned it yet. Ghost Hunt.
Ghost Hunt.
Right? The anime. That thing is excellent if you guys are listening to this stuff.
Yeah, a little screamy, but I think great.
I know, right? But I hate when you recommend an anime to somebody. I mean, this is why I had such a hard time getting into animes. But there's so much great content if you can get past a screaming protagonist issue.
It really
is.
And
Psychopaths and Ghost Hunt. But they're both great. And they have a whole episode which reminded me of this. And I was glad, though. It wasn't a spoiler. It was inspired.
Yeah, it was definitely inspired by...
Because I was expecting a scene in this book where they go around, like, finding hidden
There's,
parts.
like, whole scenes that I would say... Not necessarily directly, maybe, but, like, for sure, it has...
Yeah, this book did not invent automatic writing in like a lot of the themes that they're doing.
But I don't doubt that, or I kind of hope that the writers of that anime, took, or at least read The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, for sure. I think that's definitely for sure. Automatic writing is, I guess this is supposed to be an example of it. And there's also mirror writing where you like are talking to spirits through a mirror, which is pretty big. All of this is like late 1800s, early 1900s. What the hell? Yeah, see? This is all, you just let the spirit take over. It's like free-form Ouija board. So that's a big thing in the show, and the whole idea of having this house that the characters slowly start to realize is off architecturally and hiding something.
Yeah, and what's cool is when we first have one of the characters do this whole parchant thing,
yeah, planchette.
It starts off sounding like gibberish, and then all of a sudden it gets to like, oh, by the way, it was like asking for Eleanor.
Yeah, here you go. So these are your normal Ouija boards, but this is one with the pencil so that you can... Oh, this one has it in it too. So
I guess you just hold it and it writes...
Yeah, I never thought of that. Most planchettes do have the dot in the top, so I guess that was always for a pencil.
That's funny.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I guess it was always designed with that in mind. And you just let it move around. Just like you could let it move around here and spell, or you can let it just write it out. So, interesting.
You learned something new.
Yeah. So that's what one of the other things they're doing. What were you saying before that, though? Just how I was saying that on theories of beauty, on it literally being connected to the divine, like that there is an objective, and that's what you're seeing with so much postmodern art, that a taped banana or a toilet is like art. It's like, no, man, that's literally ugly, like a metaphysical deepness to ugly things. That there's something good, like a good is being embodied and promoted from beauty, and a bad is being promoted from ugly, intentionally disjointed, intentionally, how would you word it? Unaesthetic. Like it's offensive to aesthetics. And that's what this house is doing. Like it's just off, and you have literally an animalistic, a deep core.
Again, I don't doubt that Hugh Crane somewhat brought this shit into existence between the house, the angles,
Yeah. I mean, you know what's funny? To critique postmodern art, like this would be hard to do. You could still call this art. You could call it fucked up evil art, to literally summon demons through its ugliness, through its insult to the laws of nature. Like, but taping a banana is not, it's not complex. This house would be hard to do. It would be hard to make a house this fucked up. Because, like you said, he's intentionally changing everything. The roofs are too tall. She's at one point where she's offended by how tall the ceiling is. I'm like, that's so funny. That's what I meant by, like, architecture students would be like, yeah, she gets it.
It's kind of interesting. I wonder if this book that he wrote, by the way, speaking of art.
The Goya.
I do wonder if it was for his oldest daughter. Because they don't actually name the sisters. They just call it the
It makes sense because it's so stressing her not
and
being...
she's the only one that ends up living there. She's crossed with love. She doesn't marry or anything.
There's a title lettered in ink, Memoirs for Sophia Ann Lester Crane. A legacy for her education and enlightenment during her lifetime from her affectionate and devoted father, Hugh Desmond Crane, 21st June, 1881. But yeah, now there's a Goya etching. I don't think we were wondering what in Hill
This
House.
whole book is so weird. Under this ugly picture, honor thy father and thy mother, daughter, authors of thy being, upon whom a heavy charge has been laid, that they lead their child in innocence and righteousness along the fearful narrow path to everlasting bliss, and render her up at last to her God, a pious and virtuous soul. Reflect, daughter, upon the joy in heaven as the souls of those tiny creatures wing upward, released before they have learned aught of sin or faithlessness, and make it thine unceasing duty to remain as pure as these.
Yeah, this is what you could argue he was hoping to do for his family. So this is a Goya. If you look over here, if you guys are watching the podcast, Francisco Goya, A City on a Rock, 1880. Maybe that's what they're going for, so because they make a point of saying that came out in 81. I don't know how art would spread back then, but you literally just said about the angels going up, and it's so set above and separate from the shitty town around it. Like they describe it as like a backwards hillbilly town, and yet he was like a rich dude trying to build this perfect house separate.
It's got to be the oldest daughter, by the way, because supposedly she was cross for love, but also may have just decided to not fall in love.
It could have ended up her being a lesbian.
Eternal damnation is the lot of mankind. Neither tears nor reparation can undo man's heritage of sin. Daughter, hold apart from this world, that its lusts and ingratitudes corrupt thee not. Daughter, preserve thyself. Yeah. So he could have literally been trying to tell her, like, don't do nothing.
Oh, for sure. No, I think that was super explicit, especially with how weird and graphic the sexual sin paintings were. These ones, they make a point of an owl. She sees an owl somewhere when she's arriving. I think the first night at Hill House, Eleanor and Theo, somebody sees an owl being freaky. So there's tons of Goya play with owls too. So it could be this is a representation of what it feels like in the book. Like there's just weird shit messing with people in the house, so who knows, but these are way more graphic. So the writers are describing the book as being super graphic. So I just wanted to pull those up. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking through your little sections here on this book thing.
Yeah, I just kind of highlighted. The whole book was really interesting for me.
I think the mental actions of these people, like the father being such a nut, adds to that rift in the force, whether it's through the ugly, weird. It's almost like a labyrinth. Like he makes like a trick. They got these things, and these things are all to trap demons. These Solomonic magic things. So you could think of like temples and structures as ways, like specific patterns to trap things into. And so it could be a way that the house was built in such a weird way that it's trapping in these evil actions.
Yeah, the thing is that the house was already being funky and weird
with the very first
when the older sister was alive.
Actually, while they're still building it, they got that whole cool scene where she says this one part isn't ornated at all. Every little thing on the outside is so detailed.
The builders just wanted to finish it.
Yeah, the stairs. There's like a stair section where the finish. How would I word that? Finish as quickly as possible. Yeah, eager to finish their work. Here you go. She had a quick impression of the builders finishing off the second and third stories of the house with a kind of indecent haste, eager to finish their work without embellishment and to get out of there, following the simplest possible patterns for the rooms. So, like, it gets increasingly, people are trying to flee.
Yeah.
But there's no implication like we were mentioning earlier, the waters thing that Dudley was trying to, not Dudley, Jesus, Montague was trying to push. But I didn't get the vibe that it was actually on like a haunted site or the cliche Indian burial ground or something. Like, I didn't get that vibe, right?
You do get it's weird. The only thing that you really kind of think about is that
when they're out in the woods.
They're out in the woods, and there is like a weirdness and something creeping around in the woods.
That's true.
And you also have this imagery of the house being...
Our cats are fucking filming a Jackie Chan movie in the other room while we're trying to do spooky stuff.
I'm like so terrified they're gonna wake up the baby.
I know. This is real world horror, having a little kid, a little baby, and you're watching on the thing hoping she stays asleep.
So the image that I remember the most is that Hill House is depicted as being at the bottom of all these hills. So like imagine a house in like, I guess, a very thick forested valley area, and all these big tall hills.
That nature itself is trying to hide it, isn't one of the ways she describes it.
Hiding it or sucking it in or pressing against it. And someone literally says like, really, Hill House should have been built at the top of the hilltop. Like, but it's down at the bottom.
Yeah, when you say Hill House, you think it's a house on a hill. I guess to the point of the Goya thing, it wasn't really like that.
No, it was actually hidden. It was the opposite. It's like inside, which is funny and ironic because you see all these like, oh, the haunting of Hill House, and it's just one house on a hill, and that's not it at all. Yeah, it is surrounded to the point that even the poisonous flowers. Ironically, we're looking at some of them. Oleander. Yeah, oleanders. They're pretty, but the house is covered because that's when she's coming up to here, right? Yeah, look at it. One of the things that comes up right there, oleander poison. Yeah. Jesus. Hit you with the help is on the way. Help is available. Call these guys. Help is on the way. Poison us. Man, why is this such a... This is that serious? I didn't realize it was that serious. Oh my Jesus. What is... People, you can't be searching how to kill people on Google Lord. So much that it says this oleander poisonous tree. Yes, the oleander plant is extremely poisonous to humans and animals because she makes a point that it's so pretty that she makes some parallel like that it's surrounded. I almost got like it's an evil inversion of the or maybe accurate, the Garden of Eden. That it's like surrounded and protected by something. Yeah. And so this is protected by this poisonous plant. Like it's beautiful, but it's deadly. Like to remember that this is deadly. You could say that with the angels themselves. Like they're obviously super powerful, but also visually stunning. And so yeah, some version of oleander is surrounding this place, and then chaotic wilderness is on the outside. It's funny. I literally can't find a good idea of what good depiction this would look like. I wonder if... Yeah, she had to mention it before. Because they talk about, like, basically how the Marston house loomed over the town in Salem's Lot. Like, the hills loom over. Yeah, my summary, I have a little... I had a good quote for it, but I don't want to look through there now. It's when she gets there and it's all kind of crazy. But like you said, they definitely do find a standalone, like a separate intelligence. I love this part I just saw of Dracula, which is not the direction they went, but I do love. They think they play it off as seeing a rabbit, but that's definitely not. It is not a rabbit. She sat up laughing, and then Eleanor said, "Be quiet. There's something moving out there." Frozen, shoulders pressed together, they stared. Watching the spot of hillside across the brook, where the grass moved, watching something unseen move slowly across the bright green hill, chilling the sunlight in the dancing little brook. What is it? Eleanor said in a breath, and Theodora put a strong hand. It's gone, Theodora said. And the sun came back, and it was warm again. It was a rabbit, Theodora said. I couldn't see it, Eleanor said. And that's why Theodora just keeps confirming it was a rabbit. Theodora's spooked by it, though. Yeah, for sure. I thought Theodora was going to play a way bigger role in either she was manipulated by the house. I wonder if there's any theories on none of these people are real, and she's just walking around this house by herself.
just loonied out.
No, because
there's whole
she
cars
literally
and
gets,
things there,
and they
right?
get phone calls and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's true.
I don't think that's the case. I do think there are times where they're not real. Like, and I do wonder if there are times, because...
Yeah.
So, the characters are portrayed one way, and they become kind of cruel by the end of the book towards
her.
Eleanor.
Yeah.
Like, specifically Theodora and Luke become kind of cruel towards her. But I do wonder if some of that is the house turning them against, like...
Yeah, to make sure they capture her. To make sure they drive her a little batty.
Like, it's a little bit of both. Like, I don't know if some of it's actually happening, if they're being slightly possessed, or if Eleanor is literally imagining all of it. Because we have a scene where Eleanor runs down to the brook, and supposedly they're following behind her, and they're saying some very mean things to her. But then she turns around, and they're not there, and there's these invisible footsteps in the grass. Like, walking along the brook.
Maybe that entity is manipulating all of them.
Yeah.
But let me pause you there. Let's do a quick baby break. We'll be right back.
Shit.
We are back. Baby is good. And she, Elise, my wife, has found one of the most important parts of this. It's on page 132. I guess 132 and 133. Where she's definitely alone. And whatever was moving around in the bushes earlier, in the field, in the earlier, I guess the first couple chapters there, it's coming here, and it's just calling her name. That's really the only thing it ever says explicitly, right? Even later, she just hears her name. I think she just gets called.
And the laughing.
And you can't tell. I was waiting for it to say, is it a male or female? Because that would really help us out.
No, it's just a voice. It doesn't actually say.
The creepiest line here to me is that, because it's calling her, she thinks all her friends are with her. She's daydreaming again with all this life she's going to live with Theodora.
They were going down to the brook.
But she's just by herself. But she can see, it says here, she could see the grass go down under the weight of the footsteps. She saw another grasshopper leaping wildly away. So all of nature, both animal, insects.
Everything is reacting to this thing.
It's like it's a real corporeal being is stepping around. But I think it plays with a lot of stuff on, obviously, lost time. She mentions, she hints at it over here, we'll have plenty of time for her and her friends to do all this kind of stuff. Throughout this whole book, and King is always playing with this too, lost time, spookiness, but bubble universe almost too. Like, you're stepping out of our realm and into there.
Actually, this also could possibly be what I was saying, where, like, the loop... Like, is Eleanor haunting herself? Like,
yeah, she's seeing her own footsteps and her own, or is someone calling her name? Like, literally, someone's looking for her.
Yeah, the voice is not described. Yeah. It is only described as being both in and outside of her head.
She wouldn't call her own name though, but so she could be. That's what I mean by across time. If you're dead, it's a kind of cool thing. They say with like God's not in our time, so it's timeless to him because he's outside of physical matter. Because all matter is in space, time. Physical space is also time. So if you get out of the your mass, your grubby fleshy body, and you're in a spirit form, you are across all timelines. You're in the past and the future all collapsed.
Yeah, you're everywhere.
There's no such thing as time in our sense. So but for some reason not seeing them. She's seeing the physical world in the sense of the grasshopper and the grass moving, but she's not seeing what's causing it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That whatever the invisible person, like if that is Eleanor, spirit Eleanor, stuck at the house, just so.
What would it say, Eleanor? What would it say?
Because if you see yourself, like if you become a ghost and you see yourself, you're gonna go, "Hi, me."
Yeah.
Hello, you.
Like, yeah, but you wouldn't say your exact name, I guess.
Or if you're like pulling that person in, like if this is the loop, I guess I don't know how to explain this, but like if her spirit is in a loop and we're at the start of the loop, how is her spirit is pulling her in?
Yeah.
Or the house is pulling her in. Whatever this is pulling her in, so it's calling her name.
But because we know that she wouldn't be doing the weird blood writings and other stuff, I think it's just simpler to say it's that same entity.
I do think it is just whatever entity the house is.
Yeah.
It's calling her, and this is the scene in my mind.
Yeah.
Where we officially lose Eleanor.
Yeah. This is the call she had been listening for all her life, like as if her whole life's meaning leads up to this thing.
Yeah, like this house is basically
this was her fate. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is calling her, and basically she even says, so whatever embraces her, she says, oh, it's not cold at all,
which is what she says later, but the house felt warm and welcoming.
Yeah. Like, so I think that's when we lose her, and that's, yeah, I could even argue that technically this might even be where she potentially dies. Like, in a funny way, there's so many parts in this book where she could have potentially, in quotation marks, died, and then you just have a ghost hanging out with you the rest of the time, and then, like, even possessed. Her driving the car into the tree, like, it's just her. She can't leave now. Yeah. And that's why, like, in a funny way, this could be the moment that she dies, because she's by herself, and then after this, like, she all of a sudden, you can say that she's just kind of sneaking around the house and can hear people from the shadows. Yeah. But it's kind of also depicted like she's one with the house. Yeah. And can hear and feel everything in it. And basically she's like, there's a bunch of times where she's like, I can't leave, and I can't even tell you why. And it's almost like she knows, like, I'd say I'm bound to the house. I am dead, and I am a ghost. So even if you tried to send me from here, I cannot leave. And so I don't know. That's a theory, a working theory.
No, I love it. I like that a lot. We are spirits piloting meat machines, and so if there's like a weird, however that works, that we get hooked up to these meat machine bodies, this other force, this entity of the house, pushes into her body, but she's also maybe still in there, but not able to respond.
I mean, you say, we don't
see Eleanor.
For all we know, she like actually even
her soul is destroyed and captured. Yeah.
No, like you can even say like, I would even argue, she could have potentially physically died at the brook. Like, for all we know, because no one goes to the brook after this.
Yeah, so there's a dead body laying in the brook,
there could be,
and realistic looking ghost running around.
Yeah, like an actual.
But why would it want to crash the car?
Well, because they can't leave. They force her into the car. They make her go in the car. They send her down the driveway, and she's like, well, I mean, I can't leave, so. I know, it doesn't quite make sense.
I know, I don't like, because it, like, obviously it implies, like, they did something with the body after and took it somewhere. So, like, the body is useless to the spirit. It wants to kill.
Well, we don't know. It does end with just the car crash. We actually don't know what happened there.
I know, it's true, but they got to call somebody. Right? Yeah, it does. It does end with just the car crash. Well, then the story at the house ends with the car crash. But I'm saying with most of the spooky lore and all this stuff, the entity wants to completely remove Eleanor's spirit from the body. So, entrap it at Hill House. I mean, you get this whole thing that plays it the whole time. We haven't talked about that this phrase gets stuck in her head, that journeys end in lovers meeting. And maybe that's the husband looking for a new wife. You know, you get that theme of him. He keeps going from wife to wife to wife. He had 3 different wives eventually. I don't know. And then maybe in a funny way too, the dad was doing it incredibly wrong. Let me preface that with his creepy ass book. But if there's some weird third party demonic standalone entity in the house, and it's looking for the journey to end in lovers meeting, it's looking for a female lover, and he has a getting older daughter, maybe that was his way of trying to instill a religious fear of the evil spirits and purity and chastity, and not to fall in love, like something's preying on his daughter, and so he like overreacted and made this creepy.
We still have the oldest one die at the house.
Yeah, that could have been first. I actually like that it's vague though. Like, you know, I could see like it's a critique that we're having a hard time putting this together, but I think it makes it creepy and realistic.
It is hard. It's not entirely like straightforward, because it's not like, oh, at this house there lived this family and they were into Satanist stuff, and like none of that is explicit. We just have these weird little clues that we find. You know this weird history that we know. Yeah. That we found out through a person who supposedly researched it, and we don't know what these sources were to begin with. Like.
Sorry, what popped in my head is what I was worried was a spoiler for this book, that there was a room, like a hidden room with a door that like nobody got into. I'm like, That's not in this book at all, right?
No.
There's no hidden room door thing.
I mean, there's just a ton of rooms.
Yeah, I'm like, that wasn't a thing. That's funny. I wonder why I heard that on something. I was so mad that I heard a spoiler for this book.
No,
so it didn't even end up being in here.
Maybe it was a different one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that you found that. Like you said, something happened here. This is probably one of the most important parts of the book here. Page 132, 133.
Oh, actually, so the song, go to page 140. Eleanor was hardly listening, wondering dimly at the movement in the room. Someone was walking around, she thought, without interest. Luke was walking back and forth in the room, talking softly to himself. Surely an odd way to play chess. Humming? Singing? Once or twice she almost made out a broken word, and then Luke spoke quietly. He was at the chess table where he belonged, and Eleanor turned and looked at the empty center of the room where someone was walking and singing softly. And then she heard it clearly. Go walking through the valley, go walking through the valley, go walking through the valley as we have done before. And so this is that song that this is the actual song or parts of the song that she sings throughout the entire book.
Oh, yeah.
Go
forth and face your lover. Yeah.
Go in and out the windows, go in and out the windows, go in and out the windows as we have done before. Go forth and face your lover, go forth and face your lover, go forth and face your lover as we have done before.
Yeah.
And so she's like the only one that hears this song.
And there's misdirection on like, because her and Luke, and it's like, no, it's about
it's almost spooky. Like she thinks it's Luke saying it, but then she looks and Luke is actually at the table.
Yeah. And
there's someone else in the room singing this song.
I'm saying even the bigger theme, like, ooh, are they romantically involved? And it's like, no, it's some spooky third party thing. They tease
that like they could have been.
Yeah. Interesting. I just love, and then at the very ending we get, like you said, it ends with her crashing the car.
We haven't touched on where she climbs up to the tower.
Yeah.
Anything you feel you wanted to touch on there? That's kind of a big deal. Because she basically, in the middle of the night, she wakes up. And we start the book when they first do a tour of the house. She's physically cannot enter the library. The library gives a smell of, like, death and decay or something to her. And she just says, I just can't go in there. So everyone else kind of explores the library with this like, stone tower with, like, a winding staircase. And it has a turret at the top. And it's where that girl, the companion, hung herself.
Yeah.
So she ends up waking up for whatever at night, and she says she had awakened with the thought of going down to the library, and her mind had supplied her with a reason. I cannot sleep, she explained to herself, and so I'm going downstairs to get a book. If anyone asks me where I'm going, it is down to the library to get a book, because I cannot sleep.
Don't lose your train of thought, but that is a great writing, and it, where I think it's getting at our point of it being inhabited by by this other consciousness entity, because it's, your mind is not your own, you know what I mean? You're not yourself when you're at Hill House.
That actually, so that follows next. It was warm, drowsily, luxuriously
that's what I was thinking of earlier.
She went barefoot and in silence down the great staircase into the library door before she thought, but I can't go in there. I'm not allowed in there. And recoiled in the doorway before the odor of decay which nauseated her, because that was what...
Yeah, the human Eleanor feels she hates this place, and they all feel the cold spots, and they all hate the house. And the
but all of a sudden
thing
to her,
loves
the
house
is becoming this warm...
And that's what the father was mentioning in his book.
And you can almost see, so, like... the two, they always talk about, her and Theo talk about how sad it was, these two little girls growing up there, and the doctor was very adamant, like, they didn't hate the house, they loved the house.
Yeah.
And now in Eleanor's head, you can see, like, because once the house has decided to keep you, like, everything becomes soft, everything becomes...
Yeah. It's its own little Garden of Eden, but without...
Yeah. And we have, like, It's funny because you do see the house sort of starting to take effect on these people, because we have Luke talk about how the house was soft and how the house could be seen as a motherly figure, and how he never had a mother, so maybe once he inherits the house he won't know how to take care of it because he never had a mother to care for. But Eleanor had a mother, and she had a mother that she had to take care of, so if she stayed in the house, she would know how to care for it.
It plays on all of them at night, because even that one night with the banging on the doors, that's where it's really stressed that for sure, like the writer, like they should all be tired as shit and distressed and scared.
All like so,
and they all have the best sleep of their life.
They wake up refreshed.
Yeah, so something is doing this drug, this heroin-like effect where it's like you feel really great, but it's destroying you.
We actually didn't get into it, but like the banging on the door scenes are so freaking
I know, right? That was good.
Spooky.
I felt because she's reading this by herself in the dark, trying to put the baby to sleep.
You just hear like it's like a metallic hollow knocking on.
And it was too high. I love when they describe like it was too high up for pranksters.
Yeah, like the knocking is a weird spot, almost like a creature like creeping along the roof and like knocking on the tops of doors. And then when it does find like Eleanor's like, oh, it knows we're in here. So once it knows you're in a room, it tries to get in, and so you hear it like. Basically, imagine someone like trying to stick their fingers in between the door and the door jamb and like working at it, and like from the top,
like a spider,
like and just like jiggling the doorknob, and like the door shakes. Like they even talk about how like it'll bang and press against the door, and like it looks like the door wants to give, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's just creepy. It's so creepy. And at some point, all four of them are in a room experiencing this. It's not like It's not like this is in just one of their heads. Like first Eleanor experiences it by herself. Then I believe her and Theo experience something like this together, or all four of them experience this shit together. Yeah. Oh no, they experience it separate, and Eleanor goes through the bathroom into Theo's room, and they like experience this. So all of them knows is happening.
Yeah, it's a cool potential real world into King's metaphysic. So the Doctor knew this is the Doctor's whole plan. Was to bring people that are psychically, charged, attracting batteries, whatever you want to call them. Like, they're going to charge this place up with their powers. And then other people really can't experience it, but then it even can perhaps manifest stronger. Like, almost you give it like a body, you allow it to take on more of a bodily form, at least in the ability to manipulate things. Like, you watch the ghost shows with the EVPs, like maybe you can whisper a voice, but it's not even strong enough barely to be picked up in like infrared, ultrasonic, whatever you call it. Eventually it becomes loud. Eventually it becomes you can move physical objects, you can bang doors, like the skeptic's like, well, why aren't they doing more obvious shit? It's like, well, maybe if you made a psychic, energy battery thing, it could. Yeah. That's the whole idea behind some of the, ghost hunting tools, is that they provide energy to the ghosts. And so the guests here are all the energy, because you got to wonder if it's being channeled through Theodora. She's supposed to be the most psychic.
I know,
powered.
or Eleanor, or both.
But I think it's more Eleanor, yeah.
I think
because
it
targets Eleanor eventually.
But I don't doubt both of them being there is a problem. Yeah. Like, it could be using both.
And they all believe it, too, even though obviously the Doctor acts like he doesn't, but he does.
A funny theme. So we have this whole mother theme we haven't gotten into, where even the intro of the book kind of touches on this, but I'd like to expand a little bit. Yeah. Because we have Eleanor literally in this scene. She calls out. She said, "Mother," she said aloud, and stepped quickly back. "Come along," a voice answered distinctly upstairs, and Eleanor turned eager and hurried to the staircase. "Mother," she said softly, and then again, "Mother." A little soft laugh floated down to her, and she ran breathless up the stairs and stopped at the top, looking to right and left along the hallway at the closed doors. "You're here somewhere," she said, and down the hall the little echo went, slipping in a whisper to the tiny curtain, on the tiny currents of air. "Somewhere," it said, "somewhere." Like she's like chasing Mother, and we have basically the mom, which the mom of the two girls is the one that dies. Yeah. First. We have Eleanor's mother and her looking like having this weird relationship with her mother. We have Luke. Yeah, with no relationship. With no mother, but calling the house motherly. Yeah. So, like, is the house just taking in people to care for or to care for it, or both? Like, I don't know. Just
no, that was my original thing, because I thought for sure it's going to be that the daughters are the ghosts running around in this house. But that's not. It seems more malevolent and odd and not multiple. And like you said, with the whole them dying. Like, my most basic interpretation is just the daughters want a mom, so they're going to kill this lady to make a mom. Which I think I'm picking up from the shows. But Eleanor's not
a mom. Yeah, that's a different.
Yeah, right. Isn't that one of the plots, one of these spooky shows?
There's like a spooky movie where these two little girls are like adopted. I think it's called Mother, where they're like adopted, but they bring with them basically like a demon or a ghost, And
no, I thought it was one of either the Hill House or the Bly, whatever it was.
oh, maybe.
I don't know. That's no spoilers. But
but there's also a scary movie I think called Mother.
I don't think I've seen that. I don't know if I'm referencing that. I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking of. But just because the little girl, she feels so bad for the little girls there. There's a whole scene with like she's picturing how one of the earliest scenes with Eleanor and how sensitive she is, in a good way. Like she thinks about the little girls that had to grow up in this creepy ass house. She's like, imagine trying to play with dolls and just be a normal little girl in a haunted house, in a house that's wrong at an architectural level, let alone being a channel here. There was some point I wanted to make about how like the vampires, like from Salem's Lot, that you could almost make like a funny, like, oh, the Empire was right and the dark side, the Sith are right, kind of stuff. Like the vampires, it's right. We should be. It's just the next stage of evolution or something. Like, I don't know why Dracula was right. Like, you're immortal. It feels good to the vampire people at first. I
mean, I guess you just have to give up being able to hang out during the day.
Yeah.
You're just gonna invert.
There's trade-offs with everything, though. Like, I like my air conditioning. That means I got to put up with other, tech advantages of modern day life, and so just embrace. Vampirism in Salem's Lot case, but a general theme across King's book, and a cool thing that real world people play with is what if they're all right? Like all these religions are right in the sense that like when you die, that is your reality, what happens to your soul. You get to go to, Mohammedan paradise after and get your 72 virgins or whatever is the trope. And Christianity, you really die and you really see Jesus and really hang out in heaven, like whatever you thought it would be. And so the house in these little versions, like this guy, basically you can craft little mini bubble realms. I always say the Buddhist hell realms, they got like infinite, bubble realities. And so, like the Shining house where you get trapped in there, it's like a black hole, I always say, but they still consciously experience it. That's what we were going back and forth with, like the idea.
That's what I do.
Does Eleanor have a sense of self? It seems like a little bit.
Afterward, or
I don't know. I mean, that's what plays with like.
Well, we don't actually get to experience her. If this isn't her haunting herself in some loop, time loop thing, we don't actually get to experience her as a ghost.
Yeah. Does the body die, or does it get transferred? Like when I eat an animal, it was a conscious animal.
If her soul is forever trapped at Hill House, we basically have to look for Hill House too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the book ends with her basically she commits suicide by driving her car into this probably the same tree
for sure.
that,
it's gotta
that
be.
the wife killed herself on. Hugh Crane's first wife.
Yeah.
Before she even made it to the house.
Crash, but I imagine it's around the same spot. Like it just rolled over.
So that's where she dies, and then basically it ends with the party disbanding. Luke goes to Paris. Theo returns to her companion at home to like live in her apartment, because Theo had gotten in a fight with the person, like her roommate, and so basically she goes back and everyone's like, basically it's been long enough that everyone's over it, whatever it was that had them say mean things to each other, and her take some time apart, and then Luke's sent to Paris where his aunt hopes that he'll hang out for a while because the aunt still thinks he's just a thief, and Dr. Montague writes a book and basically retires from scholarly pursuits after the cool, almost contemptuous reception of his preliminary article analyzing the psychic phenomena of Hill House.
Which is very realistic.
And then we get literally the entire first opening. Hill House itself, not sane, stood against its hills, holding darkness within it. It had stood so for 80 years and might stand for 80 more. Within its walls continued upright. Bricks met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay steadily against the wood and the stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there walked alone.
Which, that walked alone thing is stressed throughout the whole book. So, when she was in the...
I actually, in a funny way now reading it, I'm like, I don't know that Eleanor's stuck there. I think that it just killed her. It helped kill her. And it will continue to, whatever it is, whatever walks there walks alone. Whatever it is, it's there. And it will continue to be there.
and it just likes killing people. So this is my thing. Like, you don't think that there's an animal consciousness inside? Like, there's a bull mind in your body right now.
Whether it wants the blood or whether, like, I don't know why.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you ate an animal, and
whether it feeds off of.
It literally energized all your cells. It literally was converted into energy for you, and you have consciousness, and it had consciousness, the bull or whatever, the cow. But you don't think that the cow consciousness still exists in your mind. Maybe you do. Let's not get into that. My panpsychic wife, everybody. But you know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean by I think King's playing with. I mentioned this in The Shining, and even in this last one. Like, no, I think when you become a vampire with him, you don't exist anymore. And a very scary thing, like, King's metaphysics with, do you exist afterwards? Maybe there's ways you can. Star Wars does this too, with, like, the Force. Like, it's kind of dark. Like, no, man. Retaining your consciousness after death is so unbelievably rare. You get consumed by something else. Yeah. You know, it's funny. You become the body of Christ is how they word it.
Circle of life.
Are you still conscious in the body of Christ? Or are you just, sancta, sancta, sancta? Are you just repeating? Are you just doing something? And so there's dark side versions of that.
Just over there doing the Squidward dance.
For real. With no sense of self, like, where you're just vibing. I compared it, like I said, the heroine or the vampires or the Shining, where they're all nutty. But are they really separate individual consciousness that stays on? I would say maybe this, whatever walk there walked alone, says no. It's just something feeding on people and eating. Are you pulling up the Squidward, dude? I know the Squidward dance, dude. I just
wanted to look at it.
I gotta pull it up here for the visuals. This is what she thinks you're going to be doing in the afterlife. All of my deep research on religions and metaphysics. And you're just thinking you do this.
That's what I'm here for.
You just become the mitochondria of the cell of God. Or the devil. Or a mini demon, though. But that's what I mean by, like, everybody. It's a very, like someone could become a god. Like Hercules was exceptional and became a god, or these different characters, or Odin, like, I think that's what she's playing with here. For some reason, there's some creepy ass spirit thing that walks alone, and it fucks with people and kills them, and just feeds on them. It hunts them.
Yeah, and it tries, like, whoever gets away from, like, there's a bunch of people that leave and they don't want to talk about whatever happened in there. So
yeah, and just like I am not,
people don't always die. A lot of these people are like, it's been 2 days of weird shit happening at night. I'm out of here. Yeah. But clearly scary movies are not written about those geniuses. I know, it's too boring. Or books. This book and what King does, and stuff like that. It's like the lack of moral. And, I think I literally, like, before I even finished the book, I happened to send you a meme on Instagram where this kid was like, oh, something weird happens at night in this my new apartment. Yeah. He just packs up his shit, and this is the longest. He, like, goes down the stairs and he just leaves. He's just that for real. We say that even though we stay in some spooky places. That's every character, because it's like a bunch of people that tried living here or staying here or renting it for, like, before Dr. Montague. That kid is all of those people. Second PSA of this talk: trust your instincts. Your instincts are developed over just an insane evolutionary biology background. Even pure materialistic worldview, your instincts have a longer evolutionary impulse than, like, impact development than your conscious thinking self brain part. Like, I think that's wild to think about. Every animal has instinct. Every freaking single cell, like, you don't think it thinks about what to eat. It's just reacting on instinct, on impulse. And so that's in you. And so, like Eleanor, when she arrived at the house and was terrified, and every single part of her, every cell in her body was against it. But she did develop we have a conscious mind that was able to force her body to stay there. But that same consciousness was able to be manipulated by whatever walks alone. Please don't hear Green Day in your head when I say that. That's straight and I walk alone. You did this. Cool. Sorry to ruin such a great book with that. not hating on Green Day. Classic song there. But yeah, I think we've covered it. What do you think? Anything else you wanted to bring up? Are you looking for the fucking meme you sent me? For real? Leave it alone. Okay.
Jesus, you literally described every step of the meme.
All right. I just.
Yeah, I think we got it.
I feel like we've kind of.
I think you can see super why King loves it and inspired so much, and it inspired the show. You want to watch the trailer before we vibe on out of here, so we can not get any money? Please hit that like button, guys, because we watched the trailer last time for Salem's Lot. They hit us with a copyright, like 2 hours of content
Sad
plus,
face.
and we watched a 2-minute trailer. Anyways, we're gonna do it again.
Maybe if we talk over it more.
Yeah. Wow. Dark. Scary. This is definitely not how it was described.
Terrifying.
I like the statues.
It reminds me of the Cupid statue that they talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm so sad. I'm scared of the dark out there.
Come on now.
Poison in me
Oh boy.
for years
In your foot?
until my blood turns into poison. And my heart
I remember this.
and I can't feel anything.
Yeah.
Of
We did
course.
watch this.
Yeah, we did.
And
It was a long
great.
time
It is
ago.
one of the greatest things on Netflix.
Yeah, I highly recommend this.
Yeah, I forgot about this.
In time on a silver table. Is my jaw wired shut?
I just got chills.
You wake us up from a dream like that?
Playing with timelines though too, like we were saying, like there's these.
Like any other family. We're different. Because of where we grew up.
But see, this is like a.
Hill House.
It's inspired by it definitely.
Yeah.
And definitely, but this is what I love. That's what Eleanor is doing, you think, with the whole haunting herself and like being at a time.
Yeah. There
She's
literally
with
is a scene where she like dances with Hugh.
Yeah. She's with other memories, other people's memories, other things.
So I hate that
See,
scene.
that's the hidden door, I think, the hidden room. I think that's what I'm remembering. Yeah, this is scary as shit.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry, Nasby. That really bad dream? Of course I wake.
You fucking better.
And that's her. That promise there is what's happening. But like, that's what we were trying to get at. Like, who's waking? Who is he trying? The dad with his creepy book is maybe trying to save the daughters from like this entity that's not even himself. Because if she wanted it to make it clear that it's the dad, I don't think she did that.
It's not clear that it's the dad.
Yeah. So you like.
And it's not like he was depicted as a strange man. He wasn't depicted as a Satanist. You don't hear that he was doing seances or weird shit.
Yeah, he's so religious that
If
you
anything,
could see it as an
he's traveling
overreaction.
the world. He remarries twice. Like,
Yeah.
in a funny way, he seems
Kind of
maybe
normal.
Yeah.
In that sense, in the worldly, in that sense.
Like
not
how
some-
you're not gonna remarry if you're that.
well, but they all
weird.
died too.
Yeah.
But so, and you could have the implication maybe he did it, but he didn't make her cart flip over, in the first wife. So like he's just being attacked by this entity, maybe, I don't know, or it's attached to him. You can go a million theories there, but I'm like, it doesn't make it clear that it's him. So it makes me think he too could be a victim, as creepy as he is. He could be snapping and not knowing how to fight this thing that whatever walked alone. He's just trying to keep it off with his thinking the only way to fight it is just super religious stuff, background, scare her with all this creepy imagery, which might be haunting him too. I mean, they're all freaked out by what he saw, and he's such a weirdo for drawing such freaky shit. Maybe that's what was popping in his head. Maybe that's the visuals that were being, that flooded his imagination because of the house. And maybe he didn't generate it. He was picking up on it. I don't know. But I think
Unless like he protected the daughter with his blood sacrifice, like
oh, I know, right? And brought
I
him
don't
into
know.
his own bubble universe, his own little mini afterlife.
no say.
Trapped him. Who knows? We can call it around here.
I think so. I
yeah,
don't
we're
really
good.
have much more to say.
Yeah, we're good. It gets the mind thinking about how this all could work if you take any of this aspects seriously with all the ghosty stuff, and then it's just really cool to think about how it would actually play out. I think this book, like I said, it was written, 1959, right?
Yeah, I guess, like, I was trying to see some of the questions people ask, like, why is Theo so mean to Eleanor? I do think the intro of the book was kind of interesting. Like, it's not just that. I think, so it's kind of cool that I found out through the intro is that this author specifically always tends to write characters that are sisters, or have a sisterly, like, bond. And what's interesting is that this was actually the coolest part about the intro that I found out. So Shirley Jackson used to write stuff both for, like, the women's magazine about, like, how to raise your kids, because she was actually a mom of, like, 4. And she had a super busy house. They had academics going in and out because her husband was also an editor for, like, the New York Times or something, and later, like, a scholar or something. So, like, they had a busy house. It was a full house constantly. So it's kind of funny that she writes about, like, literally haunting and dark things. But she also used to write articles. So she would be, like, think of, like, a Martha Stewart type character.
Yeah.
And then the person that wrote this. And so it's kind of cool. The intro was saying that it almost is like she's constantly balancing these two personalities in her books, which is kind of like why Eleanor is this, like, one type of person, and then Theo's like another, and they kind of bicker and fight because and it is this balance of, like, two different personalities balancing each other out and having a sisterly relationship where, like, they bicker but they also love each other, because I think it's easy to be like, oh, Theo's so mean and they hate each other, but Theo's also the first that's like not just painting her nails. Theo's also the first that's like, let me clean you, let me like.
She's like a big
the first
sister.
to comfort her.
I just pictured like a big sister. Like, I don't get why.
They basically, like, adopt each other.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I guess
all
to
that.
answer that, because I do think that's one of the recurring questions where people are like, oh, Theo's just a bitch, or like, why is Theo mean to her? Like, why is Eleanor? And I do think to some extent Eleanor is influenced by whatever it is. Like, whatever it is in this house doesn't necessarily want her. It knows that Theo could bring her from the brink of what it's trying to take her to. Yeah. So, like, the stronger the bond that she and Theo have, and even her and Luke and her and any of the other...
She's confident and worldly. Yeah. Whereas Eleanor is in her mind
like,
fantasy.
Theo's literally Theo's like, look, you can't just come live with me. Like, I have my own life. Well, I'm not just... But, like, you have your life, and no matter what it is, like, we'll write to each other, like, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna figure it out. And so Theo could... Really, it's more than just Theo being worldly. Theo could really help her be like, look, you don't have to kill yourself. Like, you're going to go home.
Well, that's what I mean by worldly. I mean, like, normal and connected and in this world.
Because
like,
we have Eleanor in this crisis.
But not dramatic, not overly fantasizing, not overly romanticizing.
I guess trying to bring it into a more concrete... Eleanor's terrified because she knows she stole the car. And she knows that going back to her sister is, like... She doesn't know what waits for her because she's never done anything like this. Yeah. Because the car is technically shared by them too. Like, is her sister gonna kick her out? Like, what will happen? So in her mind, she's like basically homeless, and they're probably gonna take this car away.
Everything I own is in the car.
She's gonna be stripped. Like, everything she owns is in the car. It's like a box and like I don't know, a couple things on her seat.
This is her only option.
And so she's in her mind, she's homeless, and I think Theo would be able to tell her, like, you're not going to be homeless. One, we called your sister. She's waiting for you. Like, I know she's a bitch, but at least you can go to her. You can start to get on your feet. You can, and Theo even tells her, like, because she admits she doesn't have an apartment. She's like, you could get one. Like, I think, right?
Stop being so dramatic. Yeah, like, that's what I meant by like, you're being so ridiculous, dramatic in your head.
Because Theo has a store. Theo's on her feet. Theo can't be compromised the way Eleanor is compromised.
Because she has like friends and this and that. Whereas
she's got friends, she's got a life.
It's like if you're ever upset or tired or something.
Eleanor spent 11 years.
And then something some emergency, something happens. That makes you have to get up out of bed or something. It's like, so Theo has these worldly connections that will pull her out of some sort of psychic rut, some sort of psychic control.
Eleanor only had her mom, and her sister doesn't really love her, and she technically got in a fight with her sister. And it's funny because we have the two. So Theo gets in a fight with her roommate, but in her mind she knows that, like, thing, it'll blow off, and she'll go back, and she'll either work things out with her roommate, or she'll move on. She'll get a new apartment. She'll whatever. Whereas Eleanor got in a fight with her sister, and basically it is the end. Like, she doesn't think that can be repaired. She's gonna be homeless. Like, it is the end of the world for her. Yeah. Her life is basically over. She's on the run. So it is these two women, and Theo could remind her that that's not the way the world works. So in a funny way, I do think the house starts to turn Eleanor quietly and subtly against Theo.
Yeah.
And that's why we get Theo saying things like, "Oh, I am Eleanor. I wear a red jacket." Like, and I don't know that Theo actually says these things. Eleanor says that she does, and we have Luke saying, "Don't say, you're cruel," but I don't know.
I think that's pretty straightforward. I don't know. I didn't think that was so crazy. Did you see here? It says the Haunting Hill House is based on a story of two English girls, Charlotte Ann Morbely and Eleanor Jourdain, who visited the Palace of Versailles in 1901. So that's the big French, I didn't realize there were ghosts there. That's pretty cool. And look at this one, though. This one's funny. Shitting on the book, I guess. It wasn't a terrible book, but since it seems to be written as a horror book, it feels like very short. It feels like it fell very short of being any good, and thus feels like a waste of my precious spooky season reading time. I'm like, really? Nothing about this book was remotely scary. That's funny. But this guy has 70 upvotes with saying, "Oh boy, it's one of my favorite Halloween books." Yeah, that's funny. I don't know what.
Yeah, I guess he's right in saying this isn't like a jump scare book. It's just spooky. It's just a good read. Like, it's definitely if you're in like a log cabin or something, it is a nice one to pick up and just read through.
Yeah, it's weird, but I'm like, that's so much scarier. That's what I like about Stephen King stuff. Like, the creepiness stuff is always in your head. I mean, what if you're being manipulated by your mind? I mean, everybody hopes that they retain consciousness after death or something. It's like, that's the scariest thing, to not even have it in life. What if you just start to slowly lose your sense of self and be captured by whatever this creepy entity is? Yeah, I liked it a lot. But like I said, there's like some crazy reviews. The 3.8 is pretty funny. So I don't know. I liked it though. I liked it a lot. I think it should be up there with the big old spookies. And like you said, it's not that long.
No,
I love Stephen King stuff, but sometimes it's unnecessarily long. Where it's like, come on, man. That should be a critique in of itself. We sit here. We've read hundreds of hours of stuff. It's not because we don't have attention span or something.
One last thing we didn't touch. Just the lovers, Journey's End and lovers meeting.
Oh yeah. What about it?
Anything you thought of?
No, we did mention that. Okay. Like, is it the dad looking for a wife, or is it really this demon entity looking for a house? Yeah, the house wants.
But yeah, okay. Lovers. I guess I think I'm good. I feel like we covered everything.
Yeah.
I think I just finally burnt a little.
Don't worry.
An entire day with I admit I loved the baby, but definitely an entire day of the baby and then talking for like a couple hours. So.
Oh, you did good.
Thanks.
We both, I feel like we captured a bunch, and some of the bigger, cooler, subtler themes in here, which do make it a classic, at least in my book.
Is she crying?
She is moving, but she looks okay. But we'll call it there. Hit the like button and all that, subscribe and all that, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.